My name's Tait, that's my Twitter name. I work at Dixon City Academy in Bradford, which is just down the road. For those of you that have never had the pleasure of going to Bradford and unaware what it's like, I've got two quotes to start off about Bradford. That's from J.B. Priestley, who's one of ours, Bradfordonian. And second quote. Bill Bryson, I don't think he's very well travelled, to be honest. And if you're concerned about, I'm kind of moving around to annoy the cameraman, so we have to follow. So that's Bradford. Education, Bradford, you might have heard a lot of horror stories about it. This is another quote. Thank you, we laugh at it as well. And it's kind of our sort of unofficial mission statement in our school. If you ever go to Bradford on the interchange, you can see it put up there. And if that's not an incentive to get out of bed in the morning, I'm not sure what is. Come in, come in. You've missed a Fall song and two of my best gags. That's probably it. I want to talk about this. I believe that schools in England are a sorting mechanism for our students, and that schools will have a mechanism that sorts students. Interestingly and shockingly, the students that don't do very well are the students that from different backgrounds, different communities, from the people that are in power. So this talk is all about how we can stop making school into a pipe where students come in and they deposit at the other end. And if they're a certain colour, a certain race, a certain gender, they'll be in power or not in power. And as Paulo Freire says, that education is primarily organised and constructed by the dominant class, and that is to make the working class stay where they are, to perpetuate the status quo. So this talk is about emancipation, so it's going to be a barrel of laughs. This is a quote from John Major. There's lots of quotes on here, and he said in 2013 that the people in power, politicians, the judges, are all coming from the privately educated schools. And if you do the research, you find out about 7% of our country's children fill those gaps. Okay, so there's all the ethnicity issues, there's the gender issues, the MPs that went to Oxbridge. And we need to do something about that, I believe. I don't know about you, but every article about school, you'll see a picture taken overhead of kids doing an exam. So we've got stuff like this that's in the paper about, you know, the rich and the poor, and the grammar schools aren't doing anything for it, and the other schools aren't. And this is kind of my talk today. I believe that the two biggest influences on society's knowledge, the way they get their information, their opinions, is from the media, which we really haven't got that much control over, and our education, which is something, as we're all sat here, we all work in schools, we're all educationists, that we can do something about. It's because of that that we've got this social inequality, because it's the consciousness of the power, and that power can work on our consciousness. So Chomsky said that the way to keep people very passive is to give them a small opinion that they can argue, that they can debate, but that's it, and that'll keep them very, very passive. So we get shocking news headlines like this just before the elections, and we get billboard notices like this. I did that gag a month ago to 100 head teachers. No one laughed. That's made up, by the way. That's not.
Sure.
It could be. And for those people, because I bang on about this a lot, and I talk to people about it a lot, and they say, well, it's kind of not our job. But our job as a teacher is to make a change, to make a difference, to change society. So our job has got political and moral dimensions. I told you missed the first bit. Have you got the wrong one? Howl's down the corridor. He's a bit shorter than me, he's probably a lot funnier. Right, so currently, it's alright, I've got thick skin. Kids are always walking out my lessons. This idea of inequality and emancipation. Gert Biester believes that emancipation is linked to traditional teaching. So traditional teaching leads to traditional emancipation, which is what we've got. Mr. Hirsch, who a lot of people recognise, perhaps you won't recognise, he came up with this idea of this common core in America, where he devised with a small group of white, male, middle-class people, decided what students needed to learn in America. And this has kind of been taken on in this country. Lots of schools, lots of primary schools take this on board. That there is a core knowledge that he believes every kid should learn, and that will make them better. I had to pull this from the Daily Mail website, that one. And as I was doing this presentation last night, my wife came in, and I shut the laptop down. I was really embarrassed. I had to lie that said I was looking at some porn or something. So, when we get the stuff about traditional teaching, we get comments like this. And when a comment starts, we now know. You kind of know that's going to be bollocks when people say that. But it's talking about these teaching strategies that devalue the teacher. I'm not sure of any teaching strategy that devalues the teacher that will have a negative impact on disadvantaged, low-income kids by these progressive methods. So progressive teaching gets a bit of slamming. Traditional teaching is the way forward. That is written by David Green, who is the director of Civitas, who, ironically enough, is publishing E.D. Hirsch's primary school curriculum. So you can see where we're going. Come in. And we've also got some stuff like this. An independent advisory group telling schools that how we need to make students ideal for the workplace. Independent advisory group, Reed Pearson's, they support that, they fund that. And it is about that. There is an inequality. Education is about an inequality of the teacher to the student. But we can change that. Hopefully this talk will talk about that. Because there's a myth of pedagogy. That we have people that know stuff and we have people that don't know stuff. And a lot of our traditional teaching is where they lift the veil of ignorance. So we're aware that these kids don't know anything, and it's my job to lift the unveil. To unveil their ignorance, their laziness, so they can understand that. So you're probably thinking, right, well, Tait doesn't like traditional teaching. Yeah, true. And you're probably thinking, I bet he's a rampant progressive. But I'm not so sure about that either, because if we look at progressive teaching, if we look at something like independent learning, is it simply not this? Or if we look at collaborative learning, is it simply not this? Or if we look at learning behaviour, the way we want our students to learn, the way we want our students to behave, is it simply not this? We talk about reciprocal teaching, getting kids to teach other kids about the stuff that they've learned. Is it just the skill of presenting students in the mould that we want as a teacher, that we want as a school? Or this one that really, really grates me when I read schemes of work, or if they're really, really good, they're called schemes of learning. And they have a real life context. Are we just not telling the kids that their school life is not real? Because kids go to school for a lot of years and it is their real life. So, I don't think traditional teaching is in any way, shape or form going to increase or develop emancipation. I'm not sure about progressive teaching either, to be honest. We have a moral basis to do something as teachers, but a lot of teachers are constrained by their school, their authority, their group of schools, their SMT, their head teacher. Does anybody know who this is? And I will wait until I've got the right answer.
Go on, sir, tell us.
Shall I tell you? Shall I unveil?
Go on.
Shall I unveil your ignorance by telling you what it is? Joke. Frederick Taylor who was born in the late 19th century. He's an American. He lived in Philadelphia, I believe. And he used to work in steel and iron factories. And he was the first management consultant. Yeah, if he was around this time, he would have had a card that he gives you, or things like this. He was the first consultant. And every single company, industry, firm uses his ideas. He came up with these. He was like a time and studies works officer. He studies the most efficient worker in a very highly subjective way. He had a model of what he wanted his workers to be like, and if they were like that, they would get paid or they would get promoted. And he eliminated any unnecessary ineffectiveness. So any craft, any style, any art, he didn't want that, because he wanted it to be really, really effective. All about money, all about time. He scientifically, I told you he's a management consultant, so he used science to select, train, develop each employer exactly as he wanted them. So people would come in, he would select them, he would train them. And he basically gave them task cards to do. You do this, you do this, you do this time, you do this time. On the purpose of getting this effective work. And the most efficient manner of doing it, everybody did the same thing. People got paid for it, and people got promoted up to management if they followed those. Now that's in industry. If you kind of think about schools now, and link that to it, can you see a correlation between the way that we're told to do something? Between the way that we get an influx of teachers coming in, and they're told to do something. The way that we need to be efficient. The way that we need to get these grades out at the end of the day. People that are very good get paid more, so we've got our performance-related pay. They get promotion. If they're really good, they join a think tank. And basically, he was saying that in the past, it was all about the person, it was all about the man, but now it should be about the system. And to me, that's what education in this country, probably in America as well, has come to be, a very efficient corporate industry. So what we need, we don't need this. We don't need teachers saying that, well, I'm not very political. I just go in and I do my job, I get good grades and I go out. We don't want neutrality. Miles Horton talks about that it's an excuse because we've got such a privileged job to do something. That to be very neutral is an excuse. He calls it an immoral practice. And this is from Biesta. He believes we need to focus on subjectification. Is that right, Philip? Is that right? That's why I've got PowerPoint going on. And that students are seen as subjects, not as objects. And are subjects of action and responsibility. Because we kind of are inundated recently with lots and lots and lots of cognitive science about what we should do, how we should do it, because the results say this, the data say this. There was a really recent one in America where displays in primary schools had a detrimental effect on kids' learning. So schools are now ripping off their displays. So there's nothing on these walls, so you all should be listening to me because you've got no distractions. But it's stuff like that. We need to take all this stuff, not with a pinch of salt. We need to be educationally wise about what we think about these cognitive science and these education research, and actually think about, right, would it be suitable for my kids in my class, in my school, teaching MFL, teaching science, teaching maths? Because there's a lot of this stuff bandied about, and I'm not saying that it's wrong. Some of it might be, but we need to be really conscious and thinking about that. And this idea of treating kids not as objects, but as subjects of action and responsibility. So we need a practice that allows this emancipation to happen. And we need to make sure we've got no predetermined assumptions of our kids that walk through the door that they're never going to achieve. They're not going to do much because their brothers didn't do it. Look where they live. They live in Bradford. It's a pretty shit area. I live in Bradford. I love it. Some of those kids aren't going to have a great life. What can we do about it? So these predetermined assumptions can be changed by the teachers. This is really long, sorry. I wanted to put it in because he's an absolute hero of mine, Henry Giroux. He talks about that we need to educate students to take risks, to struggle with ongoing relationships of power, to critically appropriate forms of knowledge. But they must have some substance behind it, they must have some knowledge. Nobody wants a classroom full of anarchic punks, but I probably do, you probably don't. But will talk about relations of power, that will question stuff. But if you question stuff, you need some knowledge behind you to back it up. When I bang on about this on Twitter, there was, I believe he's referred to as a educational blogger. He's one of these big ones that people mention, and Gove mentions a lot. And he linked me to the Common People song about that it's not my place to do that. I'm a white young man from Newport Pagnell. I teach in Bradford. My academy is amazing, predominantly working class Pakistani kids. So is it my place? Is it my place? Well, there's lots of stuff that say it is a teacher's place to do that, because emancipation can only happen ultimately if the truth, the uncontaminated truth, is generated by someone that is out of that power that's going on. So it's for us to do that. So it is our place. Someone who's not subjected to the power that needs to be overcome can help this emancipation. Because they're the only ones that can do it. But as teachers, you, me, we can help them on their way. And this, to me, is a true definition of emancipation. Again, this is from Biesta. It's a very, very unequal society. And I don't think we're going to change that. But we need to make sure that students learn this, that they are equal people in an unequal society, not the other way around. That they are not unequal in an equal society. Society is unequal. But if we start teaching kids about this, then I think we're on a winner. So, what can we do? We need reorientate. We need that. We need redefinition. We need revision. We need to get the kids to be aware of what they're going through, what their life's going to be like, what it's like now, and what they can do about that. And we can do that in every single lesson that we teach. I want to talk about my school. Because I still work in school, I'm still a teacher. I work at Dixon City Academy, and this is our learning vision that we've developed this year, and we're implementing it next year in September. We've got these 3 key words about desire, about knowledge, and about power. And we've spent months and months with teachers and students and governors making sure that we've got the 3 words. A lot of staff were very wary of the word power because they kind of thought it was negative, but we kind of want to reclaim that word back. So this is our vision for staff and students have a desire to achieve. Yeah, we need all the intrinsic motivation, we need all the growth mindset, we need the resilience. We need knowledge, of course we do. No one's talking about skills-based curriculum. But knowledge is content, is stuff, but it's also knowledge of yourself. And we need this, the power. The power of language, the power of listening, the power of being articulate, the power of knowledge. What we don't want is this. Paulo Freire talks about